Hi, Hayden. Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us from Houghton, Michigan. I am wondering if you guys would be willing to introduce yourselves, tell us what you do, and roughly a little bit about your work.
I'm Hayden Henderson. I'm a research engineer here at the Great Lakes Research Center at Michigan Tech. I'm an environmental engineer by education and a marine engineer by mistake and stubbornness.
Hey guys, my name is Christopher Pinnow. I am the electrical engineer at the Great Lakes Research Center. So my responsibilities are facilitating the electronics and computer aspects of Michigan Tech's on-water research stuff. I've been with the center for 9 years, and I've been an engineer at the university for 19 years.
Michigan Tech University is one of our longstanding partners in terms of deploying different types of assets around the Great Lakes. I'd love to hear in your own words the type of observing work that you're involved in around the Great Lakes, as well as the types of platforms and what they do.
This last year alone, we deployed or recovered 23 buoys across 4 of the 5 Great Lakes. So this includes large data well wave rider buoys for Scripps Institute of Oceanography. We put 2 of those out in the middle of Lake Superior every year. We previously deployed 3 large fiberglass Titus buoys that a lot of listeners will probably be familiar with. 2 of those in Lake Superior and another in the Straits of Mackinac. We own a data well wave rider that we deploy in the Straits of Mackinac as well. And then there are a handful of underwater observatory-based buoys that we deploy for the private energy sector in Lake Ontario. And then lastly, there are a dozen or more SOFAR spotter and smart mooring buoys, which are about the size of a good Midwest summer watermelon, and they weigh just 15 pounds. Those are all over the place in Lake Superior, Michigan, and Huron. And most of those are deployed in direct consultation with the National Weather Service to aid in their marine forecasting in areas of high recreational traffic where the data is useful for boaters, public safety, fishermen, and so on. Each of those platforms has its strong suits. For instance, the large data well wave riders are sort of known as a gold standard for measuring wave heights. While our Titus buoys and some of our new buoys for this year, which we'll mention a little later, are sort of architecturally assembled so that they provide proper wind and air temperature measurements from above the surface of the lake. So wind measurements made near the surface of the lake are somewhat invalid, right, as the wind is interacting with that lake surface. And so we need to get a height above water. Otherwise, we're sort of making an inappropriate measurement. Platforms, right, the bigger they are, the more solar power they have, and they can support a lot more instrumentation. But it all boils down to sort of what you're needing to measure or do with a given platform, what resources you have in that area, so on and so forth. This is true from our buoys to autonomous surface and underwater vehicles and so on. Everything is a vehicle. We just need to pick the right vehicle.
These platforms and buoys and other assets that you have require upgrades. And new features and technology. What sorts of things are you working on, and what kind of impact will that have on the observing network in the Great Lakes?
Well, I think one impact that we'll see is that these stations can be deployed for longer periods of time, so that you can deploy it earlier, and then also kind of hang out in the lake, late into the season, right? And then you'll also see a lot more uptime, the data reliability, reliable transmissions. We have a station outside right now. It was deployed in early February, right, and is running out there in the winter because we need to understand how the stations will perform, in bad conditions, in when there's little sun and it's cold, and so testing is another big part of that engineering.
The maturation of a lot of the sensors and things that we use just continues to get better. And so, for instance, this year, our sort of core full-size buoys that we're rebuilding this winter on new platforms will feature new all-in-one weather stations as opposed to mechanical anemometers and 3 or 4 different sensors that are all subject to deterioration, impact from age and the elements and so on and so forth, and it's all in one compact form factor, in measuring with precision greater than we previously did. So that's just sort of the natural flow of technology and evolution and product development, but it's fun to be a part of it and sort of an end user integrator in that sense.
Do you see a scenario in the future where we're sending commands or instructions down to these platforms and sensors, and their behavior is changing in real time or in response to environmental conditions?
You could do that today if you wanted to. Just let me know what you want to change.
When you're approaching these types of technology upgrades and stuff, what's the process that you follow? Are you able to buy off the shelf parts and things, and do you have a whole team of people who do this stuff, or do you have to design it all and build it in-house and go and deploy?
I would describe the engineering is largely like integration electronics. So we don't build anything at the board level. We buy components of the stations modularly, right? The
approach to technology development, at least from our perspective, is it's a big flow chart, right? And so the questions, the first questions are: has someone already done it? Okay, does that thing do what we need it to do? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe it's no. If it's no, it's how much does the thing that does do what we need it to do cost? And can we afford that? And then if the answer is no, it's can we take an existing approach and sort of adapt it, and so on. And so it's very much real-time iterative in terms of working through that flow chart, and identifying the pieces that fit together finally to finish the puzzle. So there is a challenge when we're buying things, right? We all remember the circuit board shortage, of early COVID, mid COVID, and we're still seeing sort of the repercussions of that in terms of stock, restock, ebb and flow. That applies to a lot of our work as well, and is still a challenge kind of to this day. So I think the overall the manufacturer, the idea is the price is coming down over time, but we're still at the mercy of the same market forces that you are trying to buy a new television.
I'm wondering if you do any work that's related to coastal resiliency efforts, and if you can share some of that with us.
In the Great Lakes, where we have more miles of coastline than the contiguous 48 Atlantic and Pacific combined, that is a true fact. That's almost more in our faces and impacting coastal communities than it is in New York or LA. Starting to focus more on coastal impacts and inundation and things like that, is kind of at the forefront of a lot of what we're doing. And technology has almost enabled that, because 15 years ago, when I was in high school, you couldn't have sent data at the rate you would need it to process it and make use of it in real time, right? And so what we can do now is measure and send data so much faster that we can actually assist with hazards in near real time. And so we were funded with GLOS as a partner for a NOAA Ocean Technology Transition project. It's a 3-year kicking off here shortly. And the whole idea is to try and measure in-lake near coastal water levels, sort of with a real-time warning system approach, so that those communities where they might see feet of coastal inundation from a given storm event would have some sort of wherewithal to sort of get out of the way and avoid such hazards and infrastructure damage and so on and so forth.
We might be able to instrument a station that can better detect changes in what's happening along the coast. That's something that we could do. There's a large group of people that are directly impacted by the Great Lakes. I mean, there's fishing, there's recreational boating. They need to know about water quality. They need to know if the fishing will be good. They need to know about algae. And I think that affects a lot of people directly.
We are industry for a lot of the country and a lot of the world, right? And a lot of that manufacturing takes place here. And whether we like it or not, we are subject to the induced phenomena of water quality or whatever it may be. If we can be of assistance in monitoring those things as they continue to change, along with climate forces that are certainly inevitable and happening right before our eyes, that's all important. It's important for people and public safety in real time, and it's also important for that data to go sit on a shelf somewhere, and maybe it's not relevant for 5 or 10 more years, but in 5 or 10 more years, we're going to want to be able to look back and know what the temperature in Muskegon, Michigan was, on February 27th at 1:44, because it's going to matter to a model or something trying to predict, a climate scale process or something that truly has an impact on the stakeholders, of the region.
Could each of you share with us how you got into this work, and specifically what skill sets you see as really valuable for making yourselves successful in what you do?
I hid out in grad school for a couple of years and had an intense but rewarding thesis project measuring and modeling water quality and hydrodynamics in a drowned river mouth in Lake Michigan. I deployed sensors and did the analytical chemistry to back them up, and generally gained an appreciation for the unknowns and the pursuit of physical science, and the mysteries and phenomena that go along with large coastal and freshwater systems. And then in parallel, I grew up with a keen interest and experience towards mechanical things and so on. And so marine engineering just kind of emerged as this super rewarding combination, Venn diagram overlap of skills and education, and interest. And I still, oftentimes sort of pinch myself. And, I hope that, my children and anyone else can find a combination of skills and passions and interests, that I was lucky to find and feel privileged to be here.
This is just a really, really good fit for me. I mean, I've been around, computers like all my life. I come from an IBM family. That's where everyone worked there, right? And so, I also really like being on the water. I've been sailing around for 3 decades. I like to do this stuff, and get to be outside, and it's just kind of just fell into place.
I was thinking, oh man, 20 years ago, the idea of bringing out a computer onto a boat to do work in the open probably seemed like a crazy, wild idea. But now you do that on the regular, and it's totally normal in a way of operating.
You might show, say, someone else at Michigan Tech, a sonogram of a shipwreck, or explain that you can measure water velocity using sound. They might not have they might have not have seen that before, or that hadn't occurred to them before, and then they just sort of naturally become surprised and interested in what you have to tell them. I get to go home every day knowing that I made the world a little bit better somehow, and that gets me excited about coming in here every day.
For me, it's this, philosophical idea of standing on the shoulders of giants, and these giants, the idea is the giants come before us and accomplish what was never possible at that time, and then we stand on their shoulders, right, and continue our own novel pursuits, and then hopefully one day, someone's standing on our shoulders and sort of continues that process. So that's to wax philosophical about technology development. That's what I got for you.